Okay, so let's do introductions. Doreen, let's start with you because we're excited that you're here.
Uh, Thank you very much, actually. It's the first time that I've been able to hop on one of the W.I.O.T calls because I was always in a class typically until last Friday. So finally handed in the final paper and it's like, whew, okay, now we can focus on other things. So my name is Doreen. I'm an entrepreneur based out of Alexandria, Ontario, so halfway between Ottawa and Montreal. And my passion is certainly entrepreneurship. I know Barb knows this very much. And I sold my business in November 2016 and, found myself at 54 years of age thinking, what am I going to do when I grow up? And decided to go back to school. So I'm undertaking my thesis. Just paid my tuition yesterday. So yeah, and trying to figure out at this point on a number of projects as well as my thesis, what will this look like in the post-pandemic, current pandemic, whatever we're calling this world. And that's why I was attracted to the topic today with regards to online, because I have two major conferences that I organize every year. The Business Sisters Conference, specifically for rural entrepreneurs, and I'm not sure what that's going to look like this fall. The French installment should have taken place actually on Monday. So we're not meeting face to face. So what will that look like, and so on. So regrouping, retooling, and just generally curious to know what's happening elsewhere.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction. And yeah, that is the theme for today. And I know we'll have, like, I know we've all been out there, so it'll be, I know I have some stuff to share too. And I know CV does, and I'm sure Jenna does, and Barbara. So I just wanted to ask you, Doreen, so you said Alexandria. Do you know Margaret Morris?
Yes, I do. Margaret is one of our preeminent cheesemakers, as you know, being a cheesemaker yourself, and so on. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. If you see her
Actually,
around
she was
town,
one of
say hi.
our speakers. Yeah,
Oh,
she was
really?
going to be one of our speakers, and so on a panel at one of our past conferences, and so on. So anyway, yeah, it's
Great.
I know of her, and I don't know her very well, but around here, it's either you're related to someone or
Yeah.
you know them or you know of them, because anyway, yeah,
I know what
small
you mean. I
community.
was in the county for 10 years, and people who would still say, "Are you new here?"
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you for that. Maybe over to CV.
Well, I'm coming in from Chicago, and I'm glad to meet you, Doreen. I already know Barb and Petra pretty well, and Jenna through her participation in one of our conferences a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago. And also, Jenna, I think I follow you on Instagram because somehow I know that you had a voice lesson with some important singer's voice coach. Why
Yeah.
I know that, I don't know.
You're seeing me somewhere.
So I was seeing it somewhere. So I'm recovering academic, still practicing intellectual, focused on weaving together feminist understanding and business issues to create feminist business practice. And so that's my connection with Petra and Barb. And I have been, and Barb and I are embarking with another one of the FEC members, or two of the FEC members next week. We're going to try to put together some real resources that help us understand what a feminist experience in an online seminar or in a workshop or even in just a Zoom meeting, what that might look like. And I've found a bunch of resources and I've pulled together a bunch of different tips, but I haven't yet crafted them into any kind of organized document for us to begin with. But there's a lot there, and it's exciting for us, especially because I think when we think about what we need, and then also after meetings, when we reflect on how we participated, stuff comes up. and I'm excited to hear what Jenna has to share about this too, because we've been creating some stuff on the fly just through our own experience. And I'm really intrigued to imagine, how it could be different and better, because it's going to be the reality for a while. So we might as well make it joyous and luscious and honoring and dignified and fun. So that's where I'm coming from.
Great. And and CV has an awesome book. I'm always plugging everybody's book.
She's always plugging my book, and I'm
So,
actually going to pay her for this.
Feminine Capital, but CV, hold up your book. I see it back there. I know
Yeah.
I'm forcing you into shameless promotion. but
Shameless
there it
promotion
is.
moment.
And well worth picking up if you are interested in that part of things. Okay, over to Jenna.
Hello. So I'm in Goderich, Ontario, Canada, and I was in Toronto for 13 years, and that's where I met Vicky at the bare bones beginning. We were at DMZ. She brought me in to do the human training for the entrepreneurs and how, sorry, this is on. Well, I thought my phone was off. So I've been involved with CEO for a really long time. That's how Patreon and I met. And essentially it was really interesting. I'll just share kind of a bit of a backstory really short, is that I had so much insecurity around coaching business owners because I'd come from the woo-woo world. I'd done Reiki and I was a psychotherapist, I was a personal trainer, and I'd never worked for a company. Very intelligent. I have a university degree, but I was just like, am I valuable here? And then when I was watching all of the ventures, and I'm just like, these are all human beings. I get human beings. I really get human beings. And when we're messed up in our humanness, it shows up in the business. And so I've really started to hone that over time and start to tune the humans up back to their original nature. So it isn't a doing thing. It's a becoming unencumbered so that the business can flourish and you can flourish and all the old programming can not be fixed, but fall away again, like nature, like the feminine way, like Mother Earth, like leaves falling off a tree or snakeskin coming off. So I found my niche in working with sensitive, intelligent powerhouses that hold it all together for everyone else. Because I'm one, so I get it. Do you want me to go into, we'll do introductions and then I'll do like a little bit about like being in your body while online and working with voice?
Yeah, let's finish off if that's okay. The introductions part, just so everybody
that makes sense too. Yeah.
And then maybe I'll turn it over to you. And then just by way of process, I'll invite everybody to share a little bit about what they've experienced this week or the last couple of weeks, and maybe we can help Barbara and CV also come up with a list of things that we felt worked and things that we felt didn't work. We've all had a chance to, I know I've had a chance to experience some tangential technologies so that people are trying in Zoom and how that felt, that sort of thing. So and also some interesting Zoom cultures, if there's such a thing, like a Zoom, there's like cultures to some of these calls, and we'll talk about that too. So over to you, Barb.
Okay.
There we go.
Nice to meet you, and so wonderful to see CV and Doreen, and I feel like this is a bit of a, I don't know, homecoming. So Jenna, my work, I'm at the University of Ottawa. I'm in the business school, and have worked with Petra and CV over the last couple of years as they led the EPS, the Entrepreneurial Feminist Forum. And Doreen mentioned she was a student in my class in the fall, and we've kept in touch. And Doreen, if you haven't yet, CV's book is a must read. Yeah, for sure.
Yep, follows right on Feminine Capital.
Yeah.
Punch.
So I guess my sort of focus today, Jenna, my grandmother was married in Goderich. Yeah. So I know Goderich well.
That's so cool.
Rode around the circle. And before we get into this week, certainly the victims of the Nova Scotia white masculine terrorist event that CV, I don't know if you're familiar with, we lost 22 Canadians to this terrorist. And I sent to Patriot today an article out of Conversation I thought was great that said we really have to change the discourse, which is what we're trying to do here too, to talk about this as, in Canada at least, white male terrorism, because most of the mass murders that have been committed are just that, and it's patriarchy, and it's really ugly, and it's actually behind the scenes. I'm hearing it was domestic abuse that triggered it. So I mean, it's a lot of the issues we're talking about online. Super excited today to start thinking about that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Oh, there. Oh, hey, look at you. You are like,
wow, they're done.
Doreen already.
I'm just fangirling a little bit, you know?
All right. Well, I want to thank Barbara for bringing up the Nova Scotia side. In a call I was in this morning, we had a moment of silence in recognition of what happened in Nova Scotia. And there have been quite a few. Barbara, yeah, thank you for that article. And I also will send out, or I'll post it on the FEC, an article by Pamela Palmetter, who's a Mi'kmaq Indigenous writer, and she wrote a piece for Now magazine about how she did some reviews of how the Globe and Mail and the rest of the press were reporting on this. And she calls it white male exceptional syndrome, where the reporting was basically on poor guy had a rough life, and you know, that he came to this because of his rough life, whereas if it was a Black person or a racialized person or a woman, they would have been pointing out her drug abuse, her domestic abuse. They would have, you know, framed it entirely differently. So I thought that was a really interesting take on that, on how media was covering that story as well. So, yeah.
Petra, is somebody trying to get in?
Oh, nope.
Because I heard a bunch of bloop, bloop, bloops.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why that is.
Okay.
Could that be your email?
Could be my email. I could try to turn that off.
Well, never mind. I turn.
Okay, but I'm glad you're noticing that, because because you know what is bleeping, and I don't even notice it, and it could be somebody there. So you're bringing me back to that. You know, I need to keep an eye on the sidebar. All right, well, let's then dive in, perhaps, shall we, to the topic at hand. And I'll turn it over to Jenna to start with, how do we bring our bodies into Zoom? So let's start there.
Cool. And then also, because it's just women, actually, what I'll do is get into our bodies, and then also I'm going to speak about voice a little bit. So I guess I'm training with Celine Dion and Whitney Houston's coach, which is a huge whole story of manifestation of how I found him, and he took me on as a student, and it's awesome. But as I'm working with my voice, all of the stuff, the sadness, the unspoken words, the rage and the jaw, like, there's a lot in our vocal mechanism, and here we're heads on screens. So being in our body actually allows emotional energy to be digested, just like our digestive system. It doesn't digest in the head. So if we're stuck on our heads for so long and so mind dominant, it's really good to do. So I'm just gonna do a quick body scan. I'm sure many people do this, and I make sure to like bring your energy to the back, because we're on screen, so we can jump forward and feel like this is what we need to do to get heard, or we're just excited, right? We're like, I like you, person, you're really cool. But to remember to like also come back into the chair and be lifted up by the chair and supported by the chair, because it's a real tendency for women to do the world's on my shoulder thing.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm doing this too.
Reposition.
So if I just, and you know, right, it's just that like a post-it on the computer, or, you know, like, where are you like this, or, you know,
I've been totally like this for days, and my back.
I know.
I can feel it.
Back hurts.
Yeah.
I'm moving my screen to sit so I can sit more comfortably.
Yeah. So there's like the physical ergonomics of mic positioning, and then also thinking about our senses and being kind to our ears. Is the volume too high? Is that person speaking too loud? Is that person speaking too soft? There's this sensory stress around, I can't hear them, and I want to hear them, and what did they say? And among all the other noise in our head around how am I looking? Did I say the right thing? Did that go well? And I've seen a lot of my clients experience that are running big groups. I'm just throwing out a lot of just what I'm noticing right now. But I'm noticing people have this, they're a beginner at something and they need to acknowledge the vulnerable feelings around being new at something, and that's okay. And that you could actually, in a feminist air, like say, oh my gosh, I was so freaked out about this call, but now that I'm seeing your beautiful faces, I'm good because we're all in this together, authentically. And then just stopping trying to be on, I think, is a huge part of it, and being together. So, so around getting into our body and voice, right? So we can trust our voice to come out of our mouth and hit the microphone. We don't actually have to do anything to emphasize or be heard. And it's actually, the voice will come out with much more ease and be received with much more ease when we're at ease. When we're trying to be heard, there's something off about that when we're really, none of you did that today, because you're all just sort of found your own, your voice, your body. You're like, I don't have anything to prove. Like, I can just tell a lot of you aren't suffering from that, but sometimes it sneaks in. So getting into our body, my favorite is to first start feeling our feet and not thinking about our feet, but just feeling them. And it just shifts. It's kind of like turning over a sand timer. It just flips our energy to go, oh, there's this whole other part of me. And then that you can do just during the call. Like if there's a break and someone else is talking, you just feel your feet and your whole body will shift. Your awareness will shift. And we can have full presence in being and do and speak from there. So it's this effortless multitasking of like, I can be in my body fully and fully aware of everything. We don't have to do the hard focus thing. So there's this pulling back. And so I like to invite people to feel the room behind them without looking, like just pop back to the back. And it's I'm doing it right now. It's such a cool sensation of like, oh my gosh, I have so much space. And so we're not squishing our lives into screens and circles and like, just because I am not on the screen, I'm not the screen. I don't have to fit in there. So we can actually take up the space of the room. Like even right then I expanded my energy and I could feel the door was encroaching on me. And so like we can start to really honor our physicality and the space we need to take up. And maybe we've gotten really busy and it's a bit cluttered. And that's also like, peripheral vision is taking in where we are, and it's not a judgment. It's just like, does this bug you or not? And honoring your own space and honoring your own physicality while we're in an online space. So I'll just take you quickly through my favorite resourcing. So I call it resourcing through the heart space. And I don't think, I'll just speak freely about it, but in our heart space, there's a lot of built up old emotions. It's not the same as our heart space. So there can be built up old emotions that haven't been processed and felt. So when we go into the heart space, it might feel heavy or it might feel this. And so we don't really go there. But actually right underneath it is like this supercharged powerhouse energy source that is constantly regenerating. And when we fill up from there, we're not really filling up. We're tuning into it and then receiving. So it isn't something we do, it's something we return to. So even that I'm talking about it right now, I can feel you're all doing it. Does anyone want to share anything about that? Because I can feel so many things have shifted when I was like, try this, try this, try this, try this. And a lot of things had started to already recalibrate.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that I was thinking about, so I have lots of ergonomic challenges and stuff anyway, but so I think about that more than the average bear. But when you said trying to become the screen, I realized that I don't know how to put words around it, but I feel like I've tried to do that sometimes. Like I've been really trying, and I'm doing it right now, but I've been really trying to look in the dot of my camera most of the time, and then at the pictures of everyone, somewhat less than most of the time. And then I shrink my box up so that I have everything kind of in the same area rather than like looking down at somebody down here or down here. So I do that, but I still kind of feel like, can I plaster my body to the screen so I'm like there? But, you know, but maybe this is the better posture, maybe sitting back. Because like I can see Barb and she's sitting in her chair in her office, and Doreen has her art behind her, and you are in a nice little corner, and Petra's in the laundry room, the international headquarters of Lisbeth, which I only know because I've been in her house, right? I only know that, but I really love that. Oh my God, I'm really expanding now because it's Friday, but have you seen the stories about the women who are doing their Zoom calls from offices they've set up in the fucking bathroom? There was a New York Times article about a woman who's a psychotherapist, and she's got a chair and a hassock and her computer in their second bathroom working with clients because she has no other place she can be private in her house. And I thought I had it bad with the American Medical Association set up in my bedroom. Whew. But anyway, so all that to say, so I'm just thinking about like how do we get okay with this idea that we're all in our spaces and letting the screen connect us somehow while staying like fully in our spaces and fully in our bodies. So I think I'm thinking of all of those things, Jenna.
I think, yeah, presence is really huge. I mean, it's so easy to pop up and not be present and leave the body. And as much yoga and as much meditation as I do or whatever, I don't do a lot of yoga, by the way. I like weight training, but like, you know, the way of yoga of fully being here. And one thing I do before I get on a call, I mean, this is my world for 10 years. I've worked internationally online for 10 years. I've learned over time how to not drain my energy while I'm online all the time. And I do go on walks in between and just move around, and I don't really have to think about it anymore. But the presencing of, am I here? And so I'll say, all of me is here now. And it's a calling forth of like, whatever the meeting was before and whatever I have to do after. And I'm just like, all of me is here, and all of me, bringing in all the thoughts. And another more granular exercise is to close the files in my head of like my shopping list, and I need to do this. And when, boop, 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 and then closing them all down, allowing for full presence. And then all of that just shifts automatically. So it isn't something we really have to do. It's something that aligns. And so if I had to be in my bathroom, I would just like, every room has a consciousness, every space has consciousness. I would be like, hey, bathroom, like this is temporary. You know, like I would, like if it doesn't feel so squishy or so weird, like you can make any little space expansive as long as you've made peace with it. If you feel crunched in and you feel like, oh, as if I have to do this, then it's our relationship to the thing that really defines how we feel about it. But so in our body, so the heart space, I just put a hand here, and we're going to send some energy to the Nova Scotia thing, or anyone who's suffering from anything. We'll just send it to the world. We'll just do it all. And so again, this isn't your energy. You're filling up and receiving, and from the overflow, you're just radiating out. It's effortless. So the sun isn't like, I'm sending light today, right? There isn't a consciousness about it. There's just a beingness about it. It just is. So just bring your attention and awareness to feeling the space underneath your hand as an anchor of attention. And luckily our heart space is also just pillowed between our lungs. So there's this great just, oh, there I am, right? And then you might notice that you might take a deeper breath, and that more of you is here now. And so you just bring it's like you take an elevator down from your head to the space underneath your hands, and you go there. And the only thing to do is just hang out there and feel the sensations. Notice and just let everything pour into that space underneath your hands, and feel the space underneath your hands. And then once you feel, so I'm just going to give you a few moments to find your own rhythm with that and feel your own presence and feel more of your heart space. And if your head elevator pops back up, just bring it back down with your awareness. And then as you start to feel like you're full, so you don't send love if you don't have it. Like fill up, then radiate out. And just it's just there's no special thing. The energy knows where to go, and love is more than thought. So just let that energy move out into the world, and just kind of picture yourself expanding to the size of the world. You don't leave your body, you expand to the size of the world, and you just radiate the love that you are. There's nothing to do. It really is just an intention. And as you're filling up, in order to do that, you're filling up in the process. You're not giving. So receiving is a really big thing for women, retuning how to receive unconditionally. So I find that this heart-centered breathing and centering and presencing and bringing our presence back to our body is a really great first step to feel equal parts to thinking, not emotional reaction, but feeling and sensing and being. And so for like online and everything, that expansiveness of expanding the size of the world, that allows you to feel like, oh, I'm not stuck in my house. You know, I don't have to squish into here. You know, we're human plus being. So it's just allowing more of you, the other parts of you, the intangible you, to have space, which you'll feel really good. You'll just naturally feel good. I think that's it. Once you do, like, those are some really quick cues, and it's always here. So there's like nothing to do about that. Oh, hi.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Hello.
It's interesting, as we're doing that exercise, it strikes me that I'm actually more connected in isolation than I have been for a long time. And I mean connected. I don't mean teaching. I don't mean like connecting with Zoom groups and talking with friends and all that. So this is really helpful and pleasant, because it is that challenge of not being in the screen, like being present, which I'm already on the to-do list, usually like in the next nanosecond of thought, and just say, okay, this is a challenge. Like it's a challenge. From somebody that wrote their PhD in the bathroom because it was the only place I could get away and be private. So, you know, it's it's helpful. Thank you.
Great. Oh, Petra, you're on mute. If you're.
I'm wondering if we should just take a moment to provide Jenna with some feedback, just like Barb did. And hi, Catherine. How are you? Catherine, Jenna is just taking us through. We're talking about being online today, and you know, the different things we're experiencing and different things we could do. And Jenna was taking us through how to build some somatics into our online conferences, events, etc. And Catherine does fitness. She has a fitness platform and mental health platform. You should be on it, actually, Jenna. But you guys can talk later.
We connected, so I did heart breathing. Did we do heart breathing, Catherine? Okay.
No. Okay. So I want to follow on Barb and say that what you just did is for me was missing in a lot of the calls that I've been on, especially the extended ones. So I know CV and I know CV will reference this experience we had, which was 2 days of conferences with entrepreneurs presenting back to back. And yes, we had breaks, and there was an effort to put dance breaks in there, which I thought was great. It provided a little bit of fun and just, you know, kind of like not being on the whole time, because if you're actually physically in a meeting, you're not really on the whole time. I find that with this screen thing, I feel like I have to pay attention the whole time. And when you're in a meeting, you know, you're looking at your phone, you're looking around, you can disconnect for a few minutes and look at something else, but I don't want to look at anything else. So you're just here. And I'm finding that that's hard from an attention span point of view, no matter how interesting it is. And maybe introducing, you know, I'd love to know what other people feel, but even an hour, I feel is a long time for like, you know, real intensive paying attention to presentations and having to evaluate and listen for, you know, it's not just a conversation feels different, but when you're actually supposed to be adding value. And so, yeah, I think we could be introducing more of this kind of idea, which isn't dancing or doing fun things, but more just recentering and maybe that noticing around you stuff that you were doing. And I'd be curious to know what you think about all the wacky backgrounds, because that seems to be a thing now.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think, CV?
I have, I think I have mixed feelings about them, but I think that I'm more on the plus side. So what I feel about them is that sometimes they can be a distraction.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel bad because I can't figure out how to do it, even though there are all these things I would like to do. So there's that. But I also like them because I feel like it is a chance for people to express some personality. And I think that especially when we're with people we don't know very well, that, you know, if you know someone's a Star Wars fan or a Star Trek fan or an anime fan, like all of that stuff can be really helpful. The other thing that I've thought about is there are times when I like the backgrounds that indicate what someone's business is. So yesterday we had the fifth wave step and repeat behind the person who was the coordinator. And I've seen people who've I like Jenna's poster in her background. I have my feminist business model canvas in the background. So there are ways that you can just remind people what you're there for. And then the thing that I wish we had, that if I were a tech person, I might be making right now, and I'm sure there are ways to kludge it together. But I wish that we had sort of shared things that we could put in our backgrounds or on our backgrounds to feel a sense of community. And I actually wrote a paper on this back when I was in graduate school, the idea of why don't we have these borders that we can put around our terminals that have information about our shared organization. And they have those now, they're called intranets. But I kind of wonder what would it be like if I had a border that I could put around Zoom that had the FEC logo in it, and then I would be in FEC, and then 4 hours from now when I'm doing a call with Kurt, he could put his up and we'd be working together in that space. I feel like the tools are underutilizing the psychic space and also the visual space. So I'm kind of going on there, sorry.
No,
I'm really not having, I'm not being very effective at monitoring my own behavior today. And I will say, that's definitely because I am off guard because I'm with my friends that I trust.
Yes. Oh, well, that's nice. I like you.
Just so you know.
Doreen, what about you? Like in your experiences and what Jenna was just doing, what have you noticed in terms of, you know, that all those things, like how your body reacts, how long can you pay attention? You know, what have you noticed techniques other people have been using?
Well, it's interesting, the whole thing about background when you're on, I don't know about you in Godrich and for instance, but my intranet at times is so slow that if I use a background, it slows it right down and then gets all wonky. So I basically can't afford to have, quote unquote, a background. And I'm okay with that, personally. What I found really interesting, Jenna, with what you showed us, tuning into the heart space, it came to me and it was like, this is quite a revelation for me. Living in a very rural area and having, I can go and walk in the forest for half an hour and I'm still on my property here and so on. So I feel I'm very fortunate. There's a spot on the property where I always go to ground. And literally get bare feet. It's still cold to do that right now, but out of the rubber boots and, and so on, planting my feet. And I picture when I do that, a space. And I was really amazed that I found that same space here. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have to go and stand outside when it's pouring rain. Yay!
I love that.
I can actually do that here right now. I mean, it's not that it's very far. It's just I can see it from my office window where I go. So that was, I'm as woo-woo as you get as well, Tina. So, it's that sort of thing. And so that felt really good. Just a little trick. And I'm also, as I'm trying to retool my 2 conferences, I mean, I'm really resisting the whole aspect of being on Zoom for a whole day. Like, stab me in the eye with a fork.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that at all. So I'm looking at piecing it out, 75 minutes over, why not over 10 weeks, for instance, or whatever it's going to be. And I love the ideas that I'm hearing as well with regards to heart breathing and recentering and dance breaks. I mean, we can mix it up. And I think it's important to tune into that aspect, because otherwise people are going to tune out. It's easy to do.
Yeah. How about you, Barb? What have you noticed? Have you been on any marathons as of late, or?
My eyes hurt. And now I have some optical issues to begin with, but I'm just so tired of being on Zoom. The good news is I'm connecting with a lot of my colleagues. The marketing department had a cocktail party, entrepreneurship, no agenda every Wednesday. So that's great. And I'm actually really enjoying that, because it is more present. I'm not flying off somewhere or onto something else, which seems to be the common situation. But my eyeballs are pooped.
Yeah.
They are tired. So, and I think my brain is tired of that kind of visual focus.
Can I give
Friday.
an exercise for you?
Mm-hmm.
There's a Gestalt exercise I learned in psychotherapy where you pretend like you're looking back at your skull. So you're forward all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You just relax all the muscles around your eyes, and you kind of like bring your gaze as if you're looking at the back of your head, and just continue to release and relax all the little muscles around your eyes. And you might notice your neck and your skull, and it just flips those muscles, because it's actually a physical thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it just allows your mind and those temporalis muscles to release, because there's actual strain, right? Looking and staring.
Mm-hmm.
And like you're saying, Petra, there's this magnifying glass on us for the whole, like when we're at a meeting, we're just 2 holes looking out of our body, and we're not aware of our body. We're just like being there, right? But this is like everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Can I take a sip now, or is that rude? Or you know what I mean? And then your dog comes in, your kids come, it's like, it's like it's like there's so much more self, it's not an insecurity, but what's that word? Consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sorry, the exercise about your eyes,
Okay,
it's like letting them totally relax, and all those there's these micro muscles around your eyeballs that you can just just picture butter, and I think that, yeah.
So as
Thank you.
facilitators, do you suggest that we introduce that? Like, for example, I'm starting teaching next week, a class of 20 entrepreneurs who've previously been incarcerated, women entrepreneurs, for Elizabeth Fry. And the class is supposed to be 3 hours, right? Twice a week, 3 times a week, actually. And so I'm wondering, are they going to think I'm too woo-woo if I say, okay, ground your feet and let's do an eyeball exercise, because we need to break this up somehow.
I think it's pretty physical, and so some people are putting it right in their slides, and I don't love dance breaks, and I don't love facilitated movement all the time, because I'm a rebel. I'm just like, I don't want to. I don't want to. I do what I want. so with something like relax your eyeballs, relax the space around your eyes is pretty, I don't know. it's pretty universal.
So should we be maybe then instead, should I set it up as permission? Like, these are some things you can be doing while we're on the call. I'm not going to call it out, make everybody do it at once, but we can, but know that it's okay if you want to stand up, if you want to just stretch and do this.
And you can lead by example if you take a deep breath.
Okay.
And yeah, I would say as a facilitator, leading by example. So put reminders for yourself. Maybe it's your phone vibrates or something. Again, I've been doing this for 10 years. So I only do 3 to 4 sessions a day. And I can't do anymore. I just do not have the energetic bandwidth to hold space for that long. And so I honor that. So everyone else doesn't know that yet, right? So this is something I've been to
Yeah.
Olympically bring myself into. So I would lead by example, and then you can always weave it in. I would call it like a being break, or like, do you, like, what is something that will help you just like be you right now? What if that's a dance break, go nuts. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like being told what to do.
It does feel weird sometimes to have that facilitated, I find. CV, when we were, okay, everybody's going to dance now, and it's, you know, as much as I appreciate it, I felt like, oh, okay.
I think that one was like actually not well thought out, so it would be different if you planned it in. But just thinking about this experientially, like I saw somebody stand up in a meeting the other day, and they remembered to tilt their screen, so that was really helpful. And it just felt like that guy, it was a guy, he was very real.
Yeah.
You have to get out of your pajama pants if you're going to do that.
Right,
which is important. But the other thing that I was thinking about when Jenna was kind of going through the eyes in the back of the head one, as well as when we were talking about the heart being pillowed between the lungs. So Jenna, you have the advantage of having years of experience, not only doing this, but articulating the directions, and you have some wonderful phrases. And I was thinking that, like, I would love it if you had a page or some Instagram cards that had just the verbiage that people could download to do these. So here's just a minute of eyes in the back of your head, or here's just a minute of hands on the heart. And I know that everyone's going to have different things, but there are some people who might not have the language. And of course, then you can offer it as like a free gift, or people can, I mean, you know, you can figure
You're
out
actually just bang on. I'm recording all of these mini things. If I am not going to turn my screen, but I have Post-its of like, oh, I'll be in a session with somebody, and I'm like, oh, I make all this up, by the way. Like, most of this is just stuff I've made up. So I'll have a member site that'll be, one will be free and one will be like that. But I never thought about facilitators. You could just press play and not have to.
Well, it hadn't even occurred to me to have like a video that somebody could, because that's like too high tech for me. I'm a print it out on a piece of paper person.
Right.
Well, I could have the PDF,
whatever modalities. And one of the things I think is funny is that, like, a couple of things. One is most people think they can facilitate their own online meetings, and most people are not good facilitators. And then even people who have been trained in facilitation skills may not have translated them online. Maybe they have. But you can be great as a facilitator and still not have the language to do a little body meditation.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of different ways that those can be helpful. But going back to the question that you asked, Petra, about whether or not you should do it, I think it's it's different to introduce it at the start when people are not bodily tired, but when their bodies and spirits are a little tired, like 50 minutes into it, then they're much more receptive.
Well, okay. Yeah. More receptive. Just
my favorite one is feel the chair holding you up.
I love that one. That was one of the ones I wrote down, like, and like, not only that, but trust your chair to hold you.
Yes. Ooh.
And the other one to that is trust your neck to hold your head up too. Because a lot of people hold their neck up, and it's a real, like, just, it's a manifestation of needing to be in control all the time.
Yeah. Well, when you started by saying, and I wrote this down because I love the language, the sadness, the unspoken words, the anger get held in our jaws and our necks. And then my next thought was, and that blocks the feelings coming up from our heart.
It does.
Yeah.
And so when you were talking about just relaxing, you're like, you know, I could really feel it.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm totally not a body person, just so you know. I'm totally like,
and I'm thinking,
brain person.
I'm a really good, I've worked with such heady people for so long, and I'm also kind of like that unless it really makes sense to me and lands, I'm out. I just check right out. I'm like,
What would be helpful? I'm thinking as somebody going into training online for the first time, is if you have branded PowerPoints that, you know, you could call up on your screen share just to save. so that it breaks instead of having the old coffee cup that comes up.
Right.
Doreen's familiar with that one, is that you have sort of a Jenna clip that says, okay, let's just take a
Great
breather
idea.
here.
I love that. That's a brilliant idea.
I love
Yeah,
it.
Jenna, we'd love that.
Yes.
Yes,
Give, get.
yes. And I see that Catherine's going to be with us again. I'm going to check in with Catherine because she's done a lot of online. I mean, she's running an online channel for kids, and I would love to see over the last couple of weeks, and also online yoga and fitness classes. So I'd love to know what she thinks. And when she comes back, I'll ask her that. But I want to ask you all if you've noticed a difference in gender and meetings. And the reason I ask this is, so I've been experimenting and I've been attending bizarre meetings on purpose. So I want to talk about two of them, not the fifth wave one, but the one I attended at Schulich. So Schulich Business School is running like 7 different webinars for entrepreneurs at COVID. So there's that chunk. And then I also participated in the World Future Society meetings, 2 of them now, where they have 4,000 people from around the world. And, you know, these are people who believe in aliens, okay? So, okay, let's go to Schulich for a moment. So I thought the topic was appealing to anyone, but it was all men. We had a panel online, and the structure was so structured. Basically, there was a facilitator, 3 people managed the meeting. There were about 400 people online with this webinar, and they had panelists, and all of them were men. And it was very much like there was every interaction, including your chat room, was answered by somebody else. Like it was so facilitated heavy that you really felt like you were just being like, you know, you weren't really there. You were just, herded. Yeah, herded. But it was in a weird way also very professional, because then they said, you know, we are going to not only put this recording, and I thought this was something they did well, is they actually had a student who is going to write a summary document about everything said on the call and review the chat and analyze it and publish a little mini report along with the recorded session. So I thought that was quite interesting. But so in some ways, very well managed, but extremely controlled. Then we go to the Future Society, which is actually run by a woman, not a feminist, who took me to task on one point and said, you know, well, we're a group where everyone is equal. And I went, you know, I kind of said, well, I'm new here. I'm not going to get into that right now. But they did something very interesting. Instead of breakout rooms, and to your point, Doreen, around spreading out a conference, potentially not having it in 2 days with breaks, but spreading it out over a couple of weeks. So they have a conference around future civilizations, and usually 800 people show up at this thing. So what they've decided to do is you sign up for the conference, but then they onboard you to the conference in groups of 12. So leading up to it, they have these little groups and they kind of go over the topic you sign up for. You have a little mini introduction to the whole thing so that when the actual thing happens, so it's kind of like being onboarded to the topic and the conference before the thing actually happens, because nobody knows each other. So now when I go to it, I know 12 people that from the Netherlands and a bunch of other people that I already am starting to have chats with. They happen to use Mighty networks as well. So I'm already connected with 12 people that I can go to the meeting with. So I actually thought that was really interesting, especially if you're holding a large conference. So definitely not as patriarchal as the Schulich Business School one, but just noticing gender and how you experience. One other one I did watch after the fact was the National Angel Capital NACO. You probably know it, Barb.
Yeah.
And it was also, they did have one woman presenting, but it was also very, very traditional, kind of controlling, patriarchal kind of approach. And I noticed our fifth wave thing over the last 2 days, which is our Feminist Accelerator, there certainly wasn't that. ACV, it wasn't highly controlled, but I'd love your thoughts around that. So that's my offering, my sharing with the way the World Future Society was handling the conference, which I thought was a way of dealing with the lack of informal networking that happens at conferences. So they were kind of doing it beforehand.
Your points are really important because we're all coming up to speed on this, and these are things to remember. I was on a memorial for David Smallbone this week. It was the same thing. There were only 17 of us on this. It was a memorial, so you can't really get more intimate than that. And it was ICSB, International Council for Small Business, and a couple of the men, and then a colleague, Frederica Walter, spoke. But there was no opportunity to share. There was only 17. And I'm just thinking with what you're saying is what a lost opportunity. 17 people stopped an hour and a half of their day to honor this guy, because we can't honor people very easily. But it was nice because it was, pretty sure I was the only North American. So it's that lost opportunity as well, that when you're just a passive observer, I was a bit annoyed. Like, they ran out of content, so they repeated the content, and yet there were people that would have liked to have expressed, like myself, some sentiments or a memory as they had done as well. So it comes at a cost.
Yeah, I did see a meeting that had 100 people where we were put into breakout groups right after the introduction with 6 other people to introduce ourselves to each other. And we had 5 minutes, and then that brought everyone back. The explanation being that by the time you got around the whole group, who would you remember? And it would be 100 minutes into a 90-minute event. And I found the same thing, Petra, that that having that space helped me feel more connected when it was time to do it next. And I actually tried a piece of software that I can't remember the name of it. It's called something like, it's not Hop-In, but it has some name, and it's basically a tool designed to pop people around and have them mix around things with some topic cards. But I like that, and I also like that because it has everyone start to use their voice, so it becomes a little bit easier to speak if there's an opportunity to speak later on.
Yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Well, Catherine, we haven't had a chance to, sorry about, this is my cat, Teddy. And I haven't had Theodora, actually, it's a girl. Heard from you. Any insights? And then after we hear from Catherine, I thought maybe with the time that we have, could we share a little bit about tools we might have been experiencing or things that we've learned? I learned a few new ones this week too. And so Catherine, maybe over to you. We're just given your experience at facilitating a pile of speakers and a whole channel of online stuff. What have you noticed works, not working? How are you managing that?
Can I just pop in? I'm actually in an two-day all day thing. I just need to pop off, and I just wanted to come in and do the thing and say hi, but also
Thank you, Jenna.
go back to that
thank
thing.
you, Jenna. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll watch the replay.
Yeah. Okay, take care. Bye, Jenna.
Bye.
Bye. So Catherine, what have you been noticing from your facilitators, and what are people doing?
Well, and we're keeping it super live on my channels, I guess, but I know that there's another one that I'm involved in planning, and for that one, and it's going to be pre-recorded. So the idea behind that is just, it'll be super professional, and it kind of takes the pressure off of the presenters, honestly, because it was intended to be. And it's been in the works actually for several months now, so way before COVID. But the idea was it was meant to be a lead generator for a couple of struggling entrepreneurs, and so they wanted to make it really easy. But now, of course, everyone's doing it, and honestly, I think that they've done a good job of getting ahead of the curve unintentionally, and are sticking with that plan. So they have one person who's going to be a facilitator, who's going to be kind of live and welcoming, and then they're going to have 4 sessions that are all pre-recorded. But of course, the people who are attending are going to get a certification out of it, so it's worth their while to sit through.
Are there any skills or anything that your instructors are finding are working, or
Actually, just some funny, like how people are setting up their cameras, or their phones. So I know one person I was talking to the other day, and she's got a clipboard wedged between books, and then she's got one of those, you know, those, the clip-on for the car fan area.
Yeah.
So she's discovered that if you grab, she has that, she's got it attached to the clipboard ends, like the clip part, but it's perfect height. It like captures the angle perfectly. So like, you know, people are being really creative around figuring out what works. You know, for me, I've got like devices, like I've got one laptop that has my fitness feed. I have an iPad that has my mental health. I've got my own laptop that I work off of. And the only, you know, my tip is like, if you have different channels happening at once, I find I can't do a changeover with my voice, but I can type back and forth, and that works well. So just like, and these are things that you have to discover by screwing it up a couple times first.
Right, by doing it, eh?
Yeah.
Right.
So I think, yeah, like my lesson has been just, you know, just got to do it, and then you learn from it, and you forgive yourself for all the, you know, the flubs.
The weird things that go on.
Hey, so I want to speak to the equipment and the setup part, because I have a physical disability with typing, and I have all manner of like weird ergonomic shit. Like,
whoa!
No, seriously, and that's why I've had this $800 chair for the last 12 years. But one of the things I think people underappreciate is how available stuff is to do those tasks. So I'm going to show you one of my secret weapons, which is my ring light.
Ah, yes.
$40.
I just ordered one.
What is that?
It's
What is that,
it's a
CD?
light.
Yeah. Angelic.
And you put it near your computer. It has another thing that you can clip on to put your phone right in the center, and it puts the light on your face. And then this thing, you can adjust it. So I can reduce the amount of light, and I can change the color, which I don't do because and I'm not vain, but I just can't deal with, so there's this person I love who, whenever she does a webinar, a thing, she's on her laptop and she's like this.
Right.
And then it's dark. And then she goes like this. And it's like, I don't want to see your nose. You're frowning at me, and you're in the dark. So this thing has a clip that goes here that you can put a phone or an iPad on. And it is very, very adjustable. It could be really high. But I used to try, I know this is so entertaining. I used to try my desk lamp.
Yeah.
And then my other desk lamp, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. But I was noticing this yesterday because when Anna was talking, there would be times she was wearing her hair is like a hood.
Yeah.
And then her face was dark and she looked like a ghost.
Yeah.
Anyway, all this to say, you know, my husband has his laptop up on a couple of shoe boxes, which I tape together so it's more stable. But all of that stuff, like the microphone, if you need the microphone, or Doreen has the headset with the things behind, it's not that hard to find and buy, and it really makes a difference. It really makes a difference.
I agree. Yeah, I'll mention it. Yeah, go ahead, Stevie.
End of
Equipment
tech review.
Well, I have.
And then the last thing that I have that you need to know.
Oh, you've got a professional mic.
This is not a sex toy.
I can one up you, Petra. I have a heating pad for my coffee mug.
I feel replete. Oh.
Like I got this Yeti microphone like 2 years ago, but it makes your voice sound, I don't have it on right now, but it makes your voice sound like a radio voice on screen. So if I want to do that, I have that. And I just ordered one of those lights because when it gets dark,
they're really useful.
Yeah, they're really
And I don't have a lot of natural light because I'm in my basement. I have a question for Catherine, if I can bother Catherine. So Catherine has been.
Hear you.
Who, me?
No, Catherine.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
so I have a question for Catherine. So you can see it today, but Catherine's been wearing different hats and headbands. So this is like the fourth or fifth one I've seen you in. So how is that working for you? What's that bringing to you? I have ideas, but I'm just wondering how it, like.
It's how I forgive myself for, you know, like I basically just don't wear makeup anymore, you know, and, you know, I dress pretty casually for the most part since I work at home. And so it's my way of kind of being respectful of the space and bringing something a little different. And I love my hats. Like, I love my hats, you know, so I'm thrilled to have a place to wear them. This one is actually a vintage from Eaton's. I got it from my typo in-law. So like my
I'm trying to see it.
Okay. It's like a band, and it's got like feathers, and it's like ruched silk. I don't know if I can, anyway. My hair's it's like hot
nice.
pink with feathers. It's very like 1960s. So
Well, it's very pretty. I really like it.
thank you. Oh, and here's another one. My daughter.
Yeah, and she has a fascinator. That's
She
really
does.
cool.
Yeah.
Hi.
That's great.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, just while we are looking at time too, how about other people and any tech stuff they want to share? I know one of the things that both CV and I experienced was Mural the last 2 days. And I don't know if anyone, Barbara, do you know Mural?
No.
I'll show you a picture. I kind of teed it up. And Catherine, I saw your hand up too. So let me get to that. So let me share with you what it looked like. So Mural is something you can do with a group, like if you're teaching students, and it takes the place of sticky note stuff, like putting sticky notes together. And you can do polls and stuff as well. But let me screen share for a second. I can figure out how to do that. There we go. And maybe I could invite CV, because I would love to hear your, can you see that?
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so like if I want to add a sticky note here, I click twice. I don't know if you can see that, but now it's yellow. I have a yellow sticky note. I can turn it a different color, black, and then I can type Petra sticky note. And
That's
amplify my idea, and then I can move it around. And a whole bunch of other people. We had 30 people on this call, and we could move it around. And so this was like feedback for one of the companies from all the different participants that heard the presentation. And of course, these can be printed out and customized. Like some people made circles, and everybody gets an animal if you don't have, like this is the free account. And let's see if I can move it around. So yes, I can. So see, why is it not grabbing? Anyways, you get the general idea. And oops, I grabbed that sticky note. So that's for brainstorming. Oh, here. And
Great tool.
yeah, and then they also have other frames. Like they have a set of pre-done templates and forms that, like for example, SWOT analysis. You can have your students break up into small teams and do a SWOT analysis, and then have like 9 of them all together that you could scroll around. Anyways, I thought it was pretty cool, but I'll invite CV to also comment, because we kind of debriefed on the tool afterwards, but the pros and the cons.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of, is my mic on?
Yeah.
There are a lot of different whiteboarding tools, and I haven't used a whole lot of them, but I did find that this one was comparatively easy once you figured it out. But weirdly, there are some constraints that people didn't even think about. Like, for example, there are 2 choices of Post-it sizes. One is square and one is rectangular. If you pull the rectangular one out, there's more space to type. And people also forgot that they might have to say more on their Post-its to help people understand what the Post-its were talking about. So that was kind of weird. And it took a little while to get adjusted to it, but I feel like the next time we use it, I'm totally fine with using it. And it's something that a facilitator can set up in advance. So they put the templates in advance, and that made it really, really easy. And you can also use it for not just group collaborating, but also group sensing. So you can do, it's called a spectrogram, where you put a dimension down and then people place themselves on the dimension, like, how powerful are you feeling now? And you're
right.
So, and you can, so there are lots of ways to use them. And I liked the tool. And every time I use one of these tools, I also want to have a conversation about not only how did that tool feel to use, but how did that tool constrain you? What were you not able to do? And like this tool, I found it really hard to type stuff in and get the type to be big enough and stuff like that. But
Can I just
and then
jump
some people found it really hard to type and talk at the same time. But all that said, when it comes down to having a way that's pretty easy for people to participate, this is great. There's also a whiteboard feature right in Zoom that you can set up in Zoom if you are. Yeah, it's, I don't know what level of what level of program you have to have it, but I was on a conversation with Rivera Sun, and she used the whiteboard thing to have us just type in, like everybody collaborated on a brainstorm of different kinds of nonviolent actions, and we typed them in and we could move them all around, and that was cool. And pretty straightforward. So somewhere, I haven't found it yet, I haven't looked for it, but somewhere there's a tutorial on the next level of features of Zoom that would include things like using the whiteboard, using slide share, breakout groups. Then another thing that I've noticed is that you can have the last screen, as people close out of Zoom, you can have it, you can put your own URL and you can take people to a survey, you can take people to a page with resources. I was on one where they put together a whole Google document of resources that you could read before or after the event that included things like the speakers' bios and how to get in touch with them. And I thought that was very cool.
Was that on Zoom?
Yeah, it was a Zoom thing. It was, the event itself was terrible. It was really so disappointing because the two authors that were on it were wrote fascinating books about the labor movement in Silicon Valley, but the thing itself was just not very good, which is too bad. But I love that they had this resource. So those sorts of things. And I can't find the name of the thing that I was on last week that was this tool that popped people in and out. But I will tell you that no, it's not Hop-In. Okay. It would sound like Hop-In, but it isn't. I'll find it eventually. But the weirdest thing about it, so I was on a free demo, 60 people. The very first pair that I was put into was a person I knew. Who worked for the Wall Street Journal. And I'm like, what are you doing in my life? And she was out searching for things for some consulting clients.
Okay.
Anyway, all that to say.
I see Catherine's hand up there, and then I'd love to hear from Doreen and Barbara as well to see what you guys have experienced. Catherine.
Yeah, I was going to say, first of all, thank you for showing that sticky note thing, because I actually have like a date with a friend this weekend. We're going to be working on a business canvas, and that is perfect.
Okay.
That is perfect. So online business canvas working.
Yeah,
so.
And they do have preloaded templates. And they agile and business, like if you look at they have the business CV. We have to get the feminist business.
Right.
They have an event canvas, lean and empathy map. They've got like all these things that you can use in your program that's preloaded. So thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah, and can you guys also put, if you still have the links to like your lights and your microphone, that would be amazing, just like to pop them in FEC somewhere, or maybe, I don't know, as a comment on that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Yeah, microphone, for sure. Yeah. Makes you sound like a radio host.
That's awesome, I want it.
We've got to hear this voice, I
got to figure out how to plug it in. Greg and I were playing with, I've had it for ages, but I don't remember how to set it, like I set it aside, and so here's the plug, and it's not plugged into my computer yet, so all I have to do, it's just a URL. But then I got to figure out how to change, just not capability. You figure out how to. I tried it, and then you couldn't hear me. So not this group, but another one. So I unplugged it until I could figure out how to actually change the mic, I guess, that the computer is using. But when it does work, it's really good. You'll notice next week I'm going to make it work. Doreen, do you have any tools, since you're setting up a conference? What are you using? What are you going to do?
Well, part of this exploration, I mean, I've been using Zoom for probably 2.5 years, and I'm kicking myself right now for not having invested when they IPO'd last April. But anyway, my financial planner discouraged me, and I was anyway. All this to say, so from a tool point of view, I've just been using Zoom, and I am looking for different. So I was curious to know a little bit more about CV. I heard you
I
say
found
Hop
it.
In.
Yeah.
Hop
Yeah,
The
Hop
tool
In.
that I
What is that?
well, Hop In is a different version of an online meeting organizing platform. You
Oh,
have
I
to
see.
pay
Okay.
for it. So, but it is, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
TechTO uses it for all of their meetings right
Yeah.
now. So if you want to experience it and learn about it, sign up to a free TechTO meeting and you'll get the experience.
Okay.
So the tool that I was talking about before that Doreen, you could use right away is a tool called Icebreaker. And it's at icebreaker.com or icebreaker.video. They don't have a pricing model available, and I'm not sure what their business model is. I don't know what they're doing, but they do have 6 different games that they have set up in their tool that are icebreaker games. You can use it for up to 40 people for free. And there are things like, there's a game called Your Superpowers. So what are you famous for? There's a self-care check-in. There's a nice to meet you. So the tool is called Icebreaker.
Icebreaker.
And it's really just an introduction tool for groups.
Mhm.
And when I used it, I thought it was good. I don't know how they're going to make, like, my business brain is like, no pricing model, so I don't know how they're going to do that. And then I don't want to buy a tool. I want it integrated into the suite. So maybe they're just hoping to be acquired soon, but it's very nicely done.
There's another tool that before actually I was going to look at for our live event. It's called Mentimeter, Mentimeter. They're a Swedish company, and it's an interactive presentation software where you can do in a live environment, at the very least, have everybody check into, like, type in a very simple bit.ly or simple URL and go through, and you can ask them. It's basically a audience response mechanism. And I thought it was very easy to use and simple. And I've been looking for something like that. I know that now Zoom has, they have the reactions icon, thumbs up and whatever, but I was looking for perhaps a little bit more on that than what's offered. So anyway, still kind of playing around with it. I'll keep you posted, and I'll share anything that comes out. I'm probably going to go simpler is better, because again, in the rural environment with the internet bandwidth being so poor in some areas, we're just going to have to keep it simple. So I know some of our participants may only be able to call in. With the Zoom feature, at the very least, you can do that. It's not ideal, but it can be done. So. So I'll keep you posted.
Well, and I want to, if anyone can put the Hop In, I was looking for it, the Hop In URL in the screen, and I'll put the mural URL there too, in case anybody wants to take it with them. You could get a free account, and then of course with more features with other things. I just wanted to raise very quickly, and then we'll do a checkout, the issue of surveillance. And especially with students, and also just in general, and also if you're working with marginalized populations, which I do as well, people who don't want to be identified as having mental health or addiction challenges. So I've been looking into Jitsu, the alternative to Zoom, which is open source. It's a lot more secure. And the Digital Justice Lab did a presentation for Fifth Wave and raised that as well. So I don't have all the answers right now, but I know that I came across a really good article earlier today, which I'll post, around surveillance and how to analyze whether or not, or how to know whether or not the systems you're using are secure enough, and that they're, that they're not inadvertently exposing people who don't want to be exposed. and privacy law and all that kind of stuff, because it's not very good. The surveillance on these things can be fairly, and we all know the Zoom bombing effect is what happens when you don't have a secure room. But when you have an unsurveilled room or a surveillance open room, that can also be problematic. So just encouraging people to think about, I think everybody's having the conversations, but we're all using the same tools, or a lot of them. And Zoom is not one of the most secure ones.
So I know we're tight on time. That I'm just say quickly what happened to me this week is remember CV's the recovering alcoholic academic.
Right.
I'm still the institutional academic. So we're fighting Zoom versus Microsoft Teams and our existing platforms. But what's come up is Top Hat. I don't know if this has come across your Top Hat. So this is it looks like an academic, but also a surveillance kind of software. And my colleagues suggested this for eye movement and watching to make sure they weren't referencing notes. Made me uneasy.
Yeah.
University of Waterloo and York have teamed up on an academic integrity session, and I sent them off a question. So I'll be attending that, and they'll be looking into that, because what I didn't even think about is the biomarkers that these software programs are picking up.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole new league of, like, I wouldn't even know where to go on that one, but how, if we're going to move beyond multiple choice, which got us through last term, but students' expectations are going to be higher by September, and we have to deliver better. So everybody's cool right now, but by September, I think we're going to be expected to know Zoom, and if you haven't, where have you been, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know, because this is really, I've got like this new job.
Yeah.
It's like, yikes.
Yeah, no, very true. Well, thanks. Oh, is that me?
No, it's not just surveillance from third parties, right? It's also surveillance by the faculty member or the user. So scarily you can see, and I don't know if you guys do this, but I do this. I drop into email, or I drop into one of my tabs while I'm on some of these events if the conversation isn't directly relevant. And faculty and also facilitators can see who's in and who's out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's appropriate.
Yeah, I think there needs to be what I imagine. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Yeah. What I imagine will happen is, I think an opening slide for a lot of these future for our events very shortly are going to have to help people understand how we're keeping them safe. What do we have in place that's making sure that, they're not being tracked, or their biomarkers, and especially when you're dealing with, people who are vulnerable and are concerned and don't even want to have their face on, so they use a cartoon instead for a whole host of reasons. They were stalked by a boyfriend, or they're just really fearful. So so let's do a quick, I always hate to end these things, because this was a really good discussion. There's some great links in the chat, which I'm going to save, and I'll post it on the FEC. And we'll invite everybody else on the FEC to add to this. So I'm sure other people have experiences, like you were talking about Rivera. I missed her seminar the other day. Doreen? Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
So a little tip that I found out yesterday, if you individually want to save the chat, let's say people, instead of having to repost it for others, you, which of course you can do, but if you go in the chat room at the bottom, there's 3 little dots. You click on that, and each of us can save the chat on our computer. Let's say we want to have access to all the links.
Oh, I didn't know it did it on each computer. That's great.
Yes. So that's a little tip that I just learned that yesterday.
Amazing. Thank you. All right. Well, let's do I'll send out the Crunchbase list. They have a list of startups that are, and Zoom is on there because they just raised $6 million. But there were a number of others on there I hadn't seen before, which I don't want to be a geek about conferencing software, but I was curious about why the other 20 existed and what it was they were trying to do differently. So I may take the time to get through that. And some of them were raising tons of money. So they may not be here now, but we'll probably hear about them soon. Okay, quick checkout then. It can be one word, can be a sentence, can be anything. So what are you doing on the weekend thing? So Catherine, how about you? Oh,
There we go. I will be updating my Fit In Live again. One of the exciting new things that we're going to do is we're going to start donating month passes. So I'm going to launch the month pass program. And then my goal is to find, so for every pass that someone buys, we can donate, 3 or 5 to either, underrepresented minorities, or like I've been reaching out to women's shelters or that kind of thing. So this weekend, I'm going to be resetting all that to set that up. And also maybe building a new business. I'll see if I can beat my 36-hour.
Which was an amazing sprint.
Yeah, we're going to see.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Catherine. And love the hat. I can't wait till the next time I see you. I want to see the next one. Barbara.
So COVID has hit my mom's long-term care facility.
Oh, geez.
Learned last night. So I'm going to worry this weekend, I'm sorry to say. And I have to again say my lowest was the first Commons meeting. So it's not to be the Debbie Downer, but it is the reality of what we're living with right now. And it's bloody scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, our hearts go out to you, Barbara, and
Thank
your mom
you.
and the whole
My
family.
mom.
So
Yeah.
keep us posted.
Okay.
Thank you. CV?
Oh, let's see. I can't tell. Okay. So I'm just glad to be here in this group, and because it really makes me feel like I'm learning and also like I'm not alone. And I'm really super glad to meet you in the flesh, Doreen, and I'm glad to be back connected with Catherine and Barb and Petra. And I thought Jenna's conversation was great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm kind of quick to dismiss that kind of stuff. So I feel like that was really great for me. So thank you, all of you, for these gifts.
Well, thanks for being here, Doreen.
Yeah, in closing, I love the fact that it was, we went from very woo-woo to very practical, hands-on business tools. That was wonderful, just a whole gamut. And I'm just grateful to have been included.
Well, we're grateful that you're here. And I'll say I'm going to make art this weekend. I'm trying to figure out the 9 dimensions of the Civ 2 World Civilization Foundational Tools from the World Future Society. I do not know what I got myself into, except I got tissed by a 19-year-old boy from Germany who reminded me that, aliens do exist, and this, that, and the other thing. So I'm excited about being part of this group. So we'll see what I get out of that. So have a great weekend. I really appreciate you all being here, and we'll be here again next week. I do have my cheese making seminar, which came out of one of these calls. So if I'm just doing it for fun. If anybody wants to learn how to make chev and feta at home to impress your friends, and I always call it cheese making for executives, a few shortcuts. You don't have to have the whole farm. And we'll go through that. And I think I had that up on Wednesday night. So bring your glass of wine or whatever you're drinking. And I will also take you through, I used to do a talk on the feminist history of cheese making. So the role of women in cheese, and why, all the questions to your cheese questions, like why are camemberts small? Why are French, why is Parmesan 40 pounds? Well, there's an interesting history behind that. So
Cool.
All right. Okay, everybody. Take care. Have a great weekend, and
Bye, groups.
see you next week. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.